You have been betrayed. Someone who should have been by your side used what they knew about you against you. And the worst part? It felt like God was asleep while it was happening. But on March 24th and 25th, something shifts. And if you've stayed until now, it's because this message was made specifically for you. I will prove to you in the next few minutes that the silence you interpreted as divine abandonment was actually the time heaven needed to set the complete stage for your restoration. Every tear you held back, every night of doubt, every moment you chose not to stoop to the level of those who hurt you, all of it has been counted. All of it has been recorded, and now the account is being settled. Stay with me until the end, because I will show you 3 concrete signs that divine justice is arriving in your life, and also what you must do right now to not block what is coming. Let me ask you a direct question. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest during a conversation that seemed normal, but something inside you warned that something was off? That wasn't paranoia, it was discernment. That moment when you realized the person beside you wasn't who they claimed to be, wasn't a simple misjudgment. It was the first sign of a silent web of actions being woven to sabotage your path. Betrayal rarely arrives with slammed gates and shouted words. It arrives disguised as friendship, as partnership, as well-intentioned advice. It arrives in a confidential piece of information you shared in trust that came back distorted to the wrong ears. It arrives in an opportunity that mysteriously vanished right after you mentioned it to someone close. It arrives in the public praise, accompanied by the silent saboteur behind the scenes, and you carried that weight. You kept asking yourself, why was the loyalty I offered exchanged for disappointment? Why do the people who cause me harm seem to prosper while I'm left here trying to rebuild what was destroyed? If you've ever asked that question, you need to hear what I'm telling you now. There is a spiritual law that very few people truly understand, and it is more precise than any law of physics. It doesn't depend on you. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Reporting it, on you seeking revenge, on you doing absolutely anything. It operates alone, with a precision that defies any human logic. The Bible calls it harvest, what the world calls consequence. Galatians 6:7 is direct. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. This verse isn't a religious threat, it is a description of the structure of reality. But here is the detail most people miss. The harvest doesn't happen at the same time as the planting. There is a season between the seed and the fruit. And it is exactly in that season that the enemy wants to convince you that nothing will change, that injustice has won, that God didn't see. You are at the end of that season now. Think with me. The same character flaw that allowed someone to betray you will repeat itself. It's inevitable. A person who steals an idea will steal again. A person who lies about you will lie about someone else. A person who uses friendship as bargaining currency will continue doing it until the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And when that pattern emerges, when other people begin to see what you already knew, the exposure doesn't need your voice. it becomes evident by itself. Truth is simple and doesn't need rehearsal. A lie is complex and requires constant maintenance. Over time, the effort of sustaining a falsehood is exhausting, and the cracks begin to appear at the most inconvenient moments for whoever built the illusion. Now I need to tell you something about God's silence that will change how you see everything you've gone through. In the Old Testament, there is a story very few people use as an example of divine justice, but it is perhaps the most powerful example of all. It's the story of Joseph, not Joseph the father of Jesus, but Joseph, the son of Jacob, a young man who had a genuine gift, a clear vision of the future God had prepared for him, and who was sold into slavery by his own brothers. Think about the level of that betrayal. It wasn't a declared enemy. It was the people who should have been his family, his support network, his home, and they sold him out of envy, out of fear of what he represented. And then Joseph ended up in Egypt, was falsely accused by a woman who wanted to destroy his reputation, was thrown into prison. Years passed. The silence of God seemed deafening. But here is what most forget when telling this story. Every stage of Joseph's suffering was calibrating something within him. The humiliation of slavery taught him how to manage resources without arrogance. The unjust imprisonment taught him how to maintain integrity when no one is watching. The waiting taught him a patience that no school could have taught. And when the moment arrived, when Pharaoh needed someone to administer Egypt during an unprecedented crisis, there was no other man in the entire world who had been prepared for that role the way Joseph had been prepared. The very brothers who sold him knelt before him, not out of revenge, out of necessity. The same providence that led them to sell Joseph led them back to him with humility. This is the pattern of divine justice. It doesn't just expose those who erred, it repositioned those who were wounded to an altitude that would never have been possible without the process. You who are hearing this message now, I need you to listen to this with all your attention. What was attempted against you did not destroy your destiny. It delayed recognition, but it increased authority. It tried to bury your reputation, but that same process created a story that attracts the right people. It tried to limit your influence, but the fire you walked through burned away everything that wasn't essential and left only what is genuine. And it is precisely the genuine that people recognize. It is the genuine that lasts. It is the genuine that builds legacies. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications, because in the coming days we will delve much deeper into this content about the chosen ones and what heaven is preparing for those who have gone through this kind of process. Let me now tell you about the 3 concrete signs that divine justice is arriving in your life. Pay close attention, because these signs are specific, and perhaps you are already experiencing at least one of them without realizing what it means. The first sign is the unease of those who harmed you. When divine justice is approaching, those who caused you damage begin to feel an inexplicable restlessness. You might not know this because they will never admit it to you. But this unease manifests in observable ways. They start mentioning you in conversations unnecessarily. They begin checking what you are doing, who you are meeting, how your life is progressing. Sometimes this appears as a sudden attempt to reconnect after a long silence, a seemingly casual message, a comment on a social media post. Why does this happen? Because the human conscience has a mechanism that cannot ignore the injustice it itself committed. On some level, the person who hurt you knows what they did, and when they begin to see signs that your life is being restored, when they start perceiving that what they tried to bury is growing, their internal system goes into alert. But there is something even deeper happening here that most people don't perceive. When someone hurt you and then sees evidence that you prospered despite it, there is an internal conflict with no easy resolution. This conflict is called cognitive dissonance. The human mind cannot simultaneously sustain the belief that it did something right and the evidence that the result of that action was not what was expected. The person who tried to diminish you expected you to diminish. The person who spread lies about you expected your reputation to sink. The person who stole your idea expected you to remain stagnant while they advanced. When the opposite happens, when you grow, when your reputation strengthens, when new, even greater ideas emerge from you, their internal conflict intensifies. And unresolved internal conflict always leaks. It leaks into erratic behaviors. It leaks into unnecessary comments. It leaks into impulsive decisions that end up revealing the character that was hidden. You don't need to do anything. The internal pressure does the work. This is not coincidence. It is the prelude to exposure. If you are seeing this behavior in someone who hurt you, note it mentally. The reckoning is about to arrive. The second sign is doors opening in directions you did not plan. Divine restoration rarely comes through the path you imagined. This is important to understand because many people miss the blessing waiting for it to arrive through the wrong door. Were you expecting that company to recognize your value? The blessing may come from a completely different company, in a sector you never considered, through a person you barely know. Were you expecting that relationship to be repaired? The restoration may come through a new connection with someone who immediately sees what the previous one took years to ignore. The pattern for the chosen ones is this: God does not repair what was corrupted. He creates something new, and the new is always greater than the original. There is a practical observation here. When these unexpected doors begin to open, the first impulse of someone who has gone through betrayal is distrust. Why is this opportunity arriving now? What is wrong? What is the trick? And then the person paralyzes exactly at the moment they should advance. Discernment is necessary, but there is a difference between discernment and fear disguised as caution. Discernment evaluates the fruits of a situation with clarity and decides with wisdom. Fear discards everything that seems too good because it learned that what seemed good before was used as a trap. How to distinguish one from the other? Discernment brings peace in the process of evaluation. Fear brings agitation and urgency to reject. If you can evaluate a new opportunity with serenity, analyze the facts, pray about it, and arrive at a clear conclusion, that is discernment operating. If you instinctively reject anything good before even evaluating, that is trauma speaking louder than wisdom. Restoration requires you learn to differentiate the two, because the doors God is opening deserve to be crossed. Think of Joseph again. He did not return to be the head of his father's house. He became the second most powerful man of an entire nation. The restoration was disproportionate to what was lost. It always is. So if you are noticing doors opening in unexpected directions, if you are receiving invitations or opportunities that seem to come from nowhere, if new people are arriving in your life with a naturalness that surprises you, pay attention. This is a sign that the movement has begun. The third sign is a peace that makes no sense given the circumstances. This third sign is the most powerful and also the most difficult to explain rationally. When divine justice is near, the chosen ones begin to experience an internal peace that has no logical explanation. The external situation may still be unstable. There may still be unresolved issues, broken relationships, financial situations in process of reconstruction. But inside, something stabilizes. Paul wrote in Philippians 4:7 about a peace that surpasses all understanding. He was not writing theory. He was describing something he experienced personally after being unjustly imprisoned, after being beaten, after being abandoned by people who should have been brothers in faith. This peace is not resignation. It is not the fatigue of someone who gave up fighting. It is an active stillness, an inner certainty that something is being moved in the spiritual background, and that your part in this moment is simply to remain faithful. Some people, when they reach this state of peace, become frightened, especially those who have gone through years of internal turbulence. Peace feels strange. It feels like something is wrong because it doesn't hurt anymore in the same way. The person starts thinking, did I give up? Did I become indifferent? No, you matured. There's a huge difference between the indifference of someone who gave up and the serenity of someone who trusts. Indifference abandons the dream. Serenity carries the dream with lightness, without the tension of someone trying to force a result, because it has the certainty that the result is already guaranteed by an authority greater than your own. If you are feeling this, if there is a part of you that, even in the midst of life's mess, is strangely calm, recognize this sign. Heaven is working. But now I need to alert you to something that can delay or even block what is coming for you. And this is the part of this message that most people don't want to hear, but is absolutely necessary. There are 3 specific traps the chosen ones fall into when they are about to receive their restoration, and each one can create a significant delay in what God is preparing. Trap 1. Trying to help God do the justice. When you begin to feel that restoration is near, there is a very strong temptation to give a little push, to make that social media post that leaves the implications clear for those who know what happened, to mention to the right people what was done against you, to position the narrative before the truth emerges naturally. This is a trap. Not because your story doesn't deserve to be told, but because the wrong timing can compromise the correct impact. When you try to anticipate the exposure, you place your voice at the center of a story where the most powerful voice should be that of the facts. And facts don't need a passionate defender. Facts speak for themselves. Abraham Lincoln has a famous phrase, "Give people enough time and they will reveal themselves." You don't need to reveal anyone. You only need to give time. Your task now is to build, not to destroy. Every energy you spend trying to expose who hurt you is energy taken away from building what comes next. And what comes next is greater than everything you lost. Trap 2. Bitterness disguised as discernment. This is the most subtle and perhaps the most dangerous trap. Bitterness does not appear with a sign saying, "I am bitterness." It appears disguised as caution, as protection, as spiritual discernment. It says, "I learned from the past and I will not trust anyone again." It says, "Every time someone approaches, I know there is an interest behind it." It says, "I prefer to stay alone than to get hurt again." And there is a part of that that is healthy. Painful experiences teach real discernment. But when caution transforms into systematic closure, when you begin rejecting genuine connections because they resemble those that hurt you, you are letting those who betrayed you continue sabotaging your life even after they have already left it. Think with me. If you were betrayed by one person, and because of that, close the door to the 10 people who would come to bring restoration, who ended up winning from the betrayal, it wasn't you. Forgiveness is not naivety, it is spiritual strategy. You don't forgive because the person deserves it. You forgive because you deserve to be free from the weight that anger places on your shoulders. And here, I need to be very direct. Forgiving does not mean reintegration. You can completely forgive someone and still not allow that person access to your life, your plans, your vulnerabilities. Forgiveness releases you. Wisdom defines who enters your orbit. Trap 3. Comparing your process with others' process. On today's social media, you are bombarded daily with stories of instant restoration, with testimonies of people who went from 0 to 100 in a matter of months, with turnaround narratives that seem so fast, they make you question why your process is taking so long. Comparing your timing with another person's timing is like being angry at your orange tree because it didn't blossom in the same month as your neighbor's mango tree. Each plant has its own cycle. Each person has a specific calling, and the level of preparation necessary for that calling is different. The chosen ones generally go through longer processes precisely because what is being built for them requires a more solid foundation. You cannot place a 40-story building on a base that was built in 2 days. The size of the process indicates the size of the purpose. If you are here and follow this content regularly, you already know that the chosen ones are not those to whom everything is easy. They are those who, even when everything is difficult, continue moving. Now I want to take you deeper, because this wouldn't be complete if I spoke only of justice without speaking of the purpose behind it. Divine vindication is not the destination, it's the gateway. When Joseph was finally revealed as governor of Egypt to the brothers who had sold him, he didn't use that moment to rub it in their faces. He wept, because he understood something that takes years for a mature person to grasp. What seemed like the worst thing that could have happened to him was the very mechanism that brought him to the right place to save thousands of lives during a famine that lasted 7 years. That perspective changes everything. When you start to see the betrayal you experienced not just as a wound, but as a redirection, when you begin to perceive that perhaps the path you were on before wasn't the highest path reserved for you, the pain doesn't disappear, but it gains a meaning that transforms it. I'm not saying what was done to you was right, it wasn't. I'm not saying the person who hurt you was fulfilling some noble purpose. They made a decision driven by jealousy, by fear, by greed, and that decision has real consequences. But God, and this is what separates childish faith from mature faith, God has the ability to take a decision made from completely wrong motivations and use it to produce an outcome that would never have happened on the original path. This isn't passivity, it isn't religious resignation, it's the awareness that there is an intelligence operating over your story that is superior to the malice of those who tried to destroy you. There's something that needs to be said about the weight you've carried during this process, something perhaps no one has given you permission to acknowledge until now. You suffered, genuinely. It wasn't weakness, it wasn't a lack of faith, it wasn't divine punishment. It was genuine pain caused by real injustice. And carrying that pain with dignity, without letting yourself be consumed by hatred, without abandoning your values to seek revenge, that required a strength most people don't have. There's a religious culture very present in our society that teaches that the faithful shouldn't admit their suffering, that showing pain is a lack of faith, that if you're going through hardship, there's something wrong in your spirit. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you. And strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.